The first knock came from inside the watchtower, and I remember thinking I'd misjudged the sound because I was the one holding the only key. I had just reached the base platform, boots still settling on the metal grate, when it happened. 3 measured knocks from above, not loud, but clean, deliberate, like someone using their knuckles against wood. I didn't move right away. I just stood there, looking up through the frame of the tower, trying to line up where the sound could have come from. The cabin at the top was dark, no lantern, no reflection, nothing shifting behind the glass. And that didn't make sense, because Tower 6 had been sealed since late October. I'd personally logged the closure. The padlock was old but functional, and I remember checking it earlier that week during a routine pass, still intact. No sign of tampering. I reached for my radio without really thinking, pressed the side button halfway, then stopped. Sometimes metal structures echo in strange ways at night, especially when the temperature drops fast. It was just after 21:30, maybe closer to 21:40. I checked my watch, 21:42 exactly, and that's when the second knock came. Same pattern, 3 taps, not random, not wind. I angled my flashlight upward, slow sweep across the staircase and up to the cabin windows. Nothing moved, no silhouette, just dust on the glass and a faint reflection of my own beam bouncing back. I stepped back a pace and looked at the door in front of me again. The lock was still hanging exactly how I left it, looped tight through the latch, surface flaking with rust along the edges. I touched it, just to be sure. Cold, solid, no give. I finally keyed the radio. "Dispatch, Ranger Cole at Tower 6. I've got possible activity inside the structure, requesting confirmation on any authorized personnel in the area." There was a pause before the response, longer than usual. Then a burst of static that cut across the line. "Repeat last. You're breaking." I tried again. Same message, same result, just static, then silence. The repeater up north had issues, especially at night. Still, it wasn't typical for it to fail completely. I took a breath and listened again. Nothing for a few seconds. Then, faint this time. One single knock, not part of the same pattern, just one. I don't know why that one unsettled me more than the others. Maybe because it felt reactive, like whoever or whatever was inside had heard me. I told myself it was probably someone who got access somehow. Maybe a contractor, maybe a hiker who found a way in. It wouldn't be the first time someone tried to use an old tower for shelter, but the lock was still in place. That part didn't fit. I hooked it anyway. Procedure said verify before escalating, and I wasn't about to call in backup over noise. The metal latch creaked when I pulled it free, louder than I expected, echoing up the staircase. I hesitated for a second, then pushed the door open. It gave without resistance, no obstruction behind it. I stepped inside and started up the stairs, one hand on the railing, flashlight angled ahead. The metal steps rang under my boots, each one sending a dull vibration up through the frame. Halfway up, I paused again. I don't know why, maybe just instinct. I turned off the flashlight for a moment, just to listen. Total darkness. Wind moving through the trees below. No movement above, no breathing, nothing. I turned the light back on and kept going. By the time I reached the top platform, my watch read 21:49. I remember that because I logged it later. The door to the cabin was closed, not locked, just shut. That was the first thing that didn't match. We always left it slightly ajar when decommissioned to prevent pressure buildup and worked hinges. I stood there for a second, looking at the handle, expecting to see some sign of forced entry. There wasn't any. No scratches, no dirt, nothing out of place. I knocked once, out of habit. "Ranger service," I said, keeping my voice level. No response. I tried the handle. It opened easily. The cabin smelled stale, like it hadn't been ventilated in months, but there was something else mixed in. Faint, chemical, maybe oil or old insulation. I stepped inside, sweeping the light across the room. The desk was where it should be. The chair was pushed in. The old binocular mount was still bolted near the window, angled toward the western ridge. No signs of disturbance, no gear missing, no footprints on the floor, at least none that stood out. Just a thin layer of dust across everything. I took a few steps in, slow, checking corners, under the desk, behind the cabinet. Nothing. Completely empty. I turned back toward the door, already running through explanations in my head. Thermal contraction, maybe. Wood panels shifting. But then I noticed the logbook. It was sitting on the desk, slightly angled, like it had been moved. That shouldn't have been possible. I walked over and opened it. The last official entry was mine, dated October 17th. Closure, confirmation, signed, time-stamped, everything standard. But there was another entry below it. No name, just a date. Today's date, and a time. 21:41. 1 minute before I'd even reached the base of the tower. I stared at it for a few seconds, trying to process. The handwriting wasn't familiar. It was uneven, like someone writing in a hurry. No message, just the timestamp. I flipped back through the previous pages. Nothing else out of place. I checked my watch again. 21:52 now. I picked up the radio. Dispatch, I've got unauthorized entry confirmed at Tower 6. Logbook has been altered. Requesting immediate. The transmission cut out mid-sentence. Not static this time, just dead. I tapped the unit, checked the battery. Full charge. I stepped closer to the window, trying to get a better signal. That's when I saw the tracks. Down below, near the base of the tower, just at the edge of the tree line. Flashlight caught them at an angle. Footprints, fresh, leading toward the tower. But there was something off about them. The spacing was wrong. Too close together, like whoever made them wasn't walking normally. More like shuffling. And there was only one set, no return trail. I leaned closer to the glass, trying to follow them, but they disappeared into the shadows before I could see where they ended. I don't know how long I stood there, just watching. It felt longer than it probably was. Eventually, I turned back to the room, scanned it again. Still empty, still quiet. I told myself to finish the sweep and get out. No reason to stay longer than necessary. As I moved back toward the door, I heard it again. 3 knocks. This time, from behind me. From inside the room, I froze. The sound came from the wall to my left, near the storage cabinet. Not loud, not aggressive, just there. I turned slowly, raised the flashlight. The wall was solid. No panels, no vents. Nothing that could conceal a space behind it. I stepped closer, heart rate picking up now, and pressed my hand against the surface. Cold, still. I knocked back once, without thinking. There was a pause, then one knock in return. Same spot, same tone. I stepped back immediately. That wasn't structure settling, that wasn't wind. I don't jump to conclusions, not in this job. You learn pretty quickly that most things have explanations, even if they take time to find. But that moment, it didn't fit anything I could account for. I backed toward the door, keeping the light on the wall. No movement, no sound. Just silence again. I exited the cabin, closed the door behind me, and started down the stairs faster than I'd come up. I didn't run, just moved with purpose. By the time I reached the base, my watch read 22 seconds and 3 seconds. I resecured the lock, hands steady but deliberate, and stepped away from the structure. The footprints were still there. I followed them a few steps into the tree line, just enough to confirm direction. They went in about 20 yards, then stopped. No continuation. No sign of where the person went. It had just ended. I stood there for a while, scanning with the light, listening for anything out of place. Nothing came. Eventually, I returned to the vehicle and drove back to the station. The radio started working again about halfway down the ridge, like nothing had happened. Dispatch said they hadn't received any of my transmissions after the initial check-in. No record of interference, no other units in the area. I filed the report anyway, logged every detail, the knocks, the entry, the footprints, the timestamp. It was reviewed, archived, and eventually marked as inconclusive. No follow-up investigation beyond a standard inspection the next morning. They didn't find anything. No footprints, no altered logbook, just my original entry from October. That's the part that stuck with me. Not the sound, not the footprints, the logbook. Because I remember clearly what I saw. That second entry. Today's date. 21:41. And the thing is, I checked my watch again before I left the tower that night, just to be sure I hadn't misread it earlier. It still said 21:42 when I first heard the knocking.